Dr. Teo Ho Pin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me great pleasure to warmly welcome you to the opening of the inaugural BuildTech Asia Digital 2020. Singapore Institute of Building Limited, SIBL, would like to acknowledge and thank Spear Exhibits for a wholly owned subsidiary of Singapore Press Holdings as our partner in co-organizing this inaugural edition of the virtual exhibition. The old Chinese saying that you cannot clap with one hand and need two hands to clap to make an impact holds true by this collaboration between us. Thank you, Spear Exhibits. The two-day event of BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 has been brought about by the new normal birthed by COVID-19, which propelled us to innovate and migrate such event into webinar as the digital platform set to launch one of the construction anchor events in Singapore. BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 will become the regional trade show for the built environment sector, fostering live leading-edge technologies and innovations that will be reshaping the future of the built environment in the new norm. BuildTech Asia Digital is the precursor of BuildTech Asia 2021, which is incidentally scheduled for March 2021. It's still the growing construction and building exhibition in Singapore that is currently running into its 9th edition in 2021. With the complication posed by closed borders and travel inhibition because of the COVID-19 pandemic, BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 was conceived to enable us to virtually gather and interact with companies and professionals in the built environment sector to discuss trends, insights, and developments to accelerate the adoption of Industry 4.0 that sees the workforce using the latest smart technologies for solutions to the current challenges thrown out by the new norm, climate change, and sustainability. BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 aspires to be the region's leading trade show for the industry professionals. We are therefore committed to introducing key technologies to meet the evolving needs of companies and the built industries. We focus on 5 main sectors: BuildCon, BuildMed, BuildFin, BuildFM, and BuildPro. I'm pleased that BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 has been able to attract and bring together more than 120 exhibiting brands from Austria, China, Italy, Japan, Korea, Papua New Guinea, Malaysia, and Singapore, with a total of 26 webinar tracks over the next 2 days period. Digital transformation has played a significant role in producing efficiencies for the built environment. BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 now offers the digital platform to get the latest updates from thought leaders and learn what to expect in the new normal for the construction industry. I am very encouraged and express a big thank you for the strong support displayed by trade associations from the region and Singapore, like ACES, IES, SPM, SCAL, SIBL, SGBC, SISV, SIDS, JBCCCI, just to name a few. It is now time for you to discover what BuildTech Asia Digital 2020 has to offer. I wish every and each one of you a fruitful time at BuildTech Asia Digital and look forward to seeing you all next March at BuildTech Asia 2021 at Singapore Expo. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Dr. Sussie, for her welcome address. Next, may we invite Dr. Teo Ho Pin, former mayor, Northwest District, former Member of Parliament, Bukit Panjang constituency, to share with us his topic on the new norm in constructions amid COVID-19. Over to you, Dr. Teo.
Good morning, Dr. Sussie Ketit, President of the Singapore Institute of Building Limited. friends from the built environment industry, both from Singapore and overseas. First of all, let me welcome all of you to this first inaugural BuildTech Asia Digital Series webinar. First of all, let me thank the organizer. The co-organizers are actually Spear Exhibits and also Singapore Institute of Building Limited, supported by the CIJC, which is the Construction Industry Joint Committee in Singapore. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome our friends from overseas, who have joined us in this webinar. I think all of us are industry practitioners. It is good to share our experiences in coping with the COVID-19 in Singapore and also in other countries. So what I'll be sharing today is actually what Singapore has experienced after the impact of COVID-19, and how the built environment industry has been impacted or affected by COVID-19, and what the Singapore government and also the various industry stakeholders have come together over the last 8 months to actually adopt various measures and solutions to cope with the COVID-19, and how to make progress in the built environment industry in the future. First of all, you can see that based on just a recent newspaper report, there is a spike in COVID cases worldwide. As said today, worldwide, there's over more than 37 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and about more than 1 million deaths. So what is more alarming is you look at the trend, you can see the rate of infection. It has been increasing, and that is very worrying, right? If you look at the number of days, there's between the 5 million cases of officially confirmed cases, it has been shortening, right? So this is to show the alarming rate of how COVID-19 can spread in the community. For example, India is experiencing a surge in COVID-19 cases. Right, in 15 days, you can get 1 million cases. I think that is something which we all must pay attention to this very infectious disease. So what can the industry do? What can the government do to cope with this crisis? As you can see, worldwide, more than 1 million deaths, right? In Singapore, we are very fortunate. To date, we have 28 deaths in Singapore. I think everyone is working very hard to protect the vulnerable in our society, especially the elderly, from this COVID-19. So this is something which all stakeholders must continue to actually take precautions as we move in the midst of COVID-19. What is the impact of COVID-19 on Singapore, right? First, I think since February, the first half of Singapore's economy, the GDP has shrunk by 6.7%. In fact, the second quarter has also shrunk by 7%. So you can see that the GDP, the economy of Singapore has been affected. Right? Singapore is a very export-driven economy. And of course, with COVID-19 having a lot of restrictions on travels, and import, export, you find that we are affected. Secondly, you find that the construction industry has shrunk in the first 2 quarters by over 54%, right? Although the third quarter is shrunk lesser, about 44%, but overall you can see the industry is shrinking, right? Because there are a lot of work disruptions in the construction industry. And based on the Building and Construction Authority estimated forecast this year, we are expecting construction demand to drop, right, to about 18 to 23 billion this year, right? Used to be about 30 B, so it has dropped quite a fair bit. Now this is basically due to projects delay, projects shelf, and projects aborted, in Singapore. And COVID-19 has also affected the employment status in Singapore. Today, we have about 110,000 residents unemployed. right? Unemployment rate is climbing. This is something which the government is very concerned. That's why it has come up with various measures. The Singapore government has actually put forward a 100 billion Singapore dollars budget, for COVID-19 support measures, mainly to help the businesses and also to help the businesses to keep the jobs for Singaporeans and residents in Singapore, right? So this is some of the measures which I will share later on. What is the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry? First, the impact is that it has caused a lot of project progress disruptions. Over 4,000 construction sites or projects were affected by COVID-19. And that is a lot. As far as Singapore, as a small city state, we have 4,000 construction sites affected by COVID, and all the sites are at different stages of construction. Secondly, we had an outbreak at our foreign workers' dormitories, and more than 300,000 foreign workers were affected in over more than 1,000 foreign workers' dormitories in Singapore. And this is indeed a very grave concern of not only the authorities, but also the employers and the workers themselves. Third, you find that because of the global supply chain disruptions, in Singapore, we imported a lot of our building materials and equipment from overseas, about 90% of them. And you find that with these disruptions in the world travel and trading, you find that we are affected. The construction projects are affected due to the disruption of supply chain all over the world. Fourth, because the projects are disrupted, progress is disrupted. As a result, there's lower payment, less progress payment, and that affects the cash flow of the built environment industry firms, especially contractors, who have work at different stages, because work on site is not progressing. As a result, you can't make any progress claims, and that has affected the cash flow of the companies. At the same time, the companies are continuing to pay wages, continuing to pay expenses, utilities, rentals, and so on and so forth, right? And that has put a lot of strain on quite a number of companies in Singapore. The fifth impact is the additional COVID compliance costs. Because of the impact on the construction industry, right, the outbreak, especially in the dormitories, right, the authorities have come up with various measures to help the industries to get back on its feet. So there are quite a number of safe work management measures and also policies, regulations implemented over the last 8 months to help the industry to get on its feet, to restart work. And this is indeed a very steep learning curve, right? This is the first time every country is experiencing such a widespread pandemic. And every government, including Singapore's government, is also learning every day as to how this virus is behaving, how is it mutating, right? What are the measures to take to make it effective, to prevent spread, to prevent further infection, and so on and so forth. So it is indeed a very steep learning curve, and the Singapore's government has been working very closely with the industry stakeholders over the last 8 months to see how can we together overcome this crisis. And of course, in that process, when certain measures were introduced, there are always cost implications, and that cost has to be shared by various parties, in implementing those measures, including the government coming in to support the industry. And the last impact is that because of this disruption, because of the supply chain disruption, right, you find that, right, the cost of construction has increased, right? For example, manpower costs, accommodation for the workers, the transportation, right, the productivity loss, the rental of equipment, and the disruption, in terms of workflow. All this has resulted in an increase in the cost of construction. So at the budget this year, in fact, the government has announced the budget 4 times with 4 measures, 4 budgets to actually support the industry to cope with COVID-19. As far as the construction industry is concerned, you find that the first is to help in terms of manpower costs to the built environment industry. So the government has come out with various schemes. For example, the job support scheme, which is actually a wage subsidy scheme, to subsidize between 75 to 35% of the wage to help to the companies to retain jobs. Also, the foreign workers levy waiver, right, between 100% to 25%, again, to help companies to reduce the business cost, and the foreign workers levy rebate, right? So you find that these 3 schemes are basically to help the companies to reduce the manpower cost so that they are able to sustain their operations and keep the jobs for both Singaporeans and also the workers. You can actually go to the Google and use these keywords to actually search for these keywords. Now, for the benefit of our overseas friends, you can search all these keywords and you will be able to find the details of the various schemes. The second area which the government has come in to help the built environment industry is in helping the business cost support, right? So the government has announced, for example, to defer the income tax or corporate tax payment, right? That is to help in the cash flow. It has also helped in terms of providing property tax rebate and rental waiver, to help especially those in the commercial industrial premises. And also the government has announced a 1-year deferment of any increase in the government fees and charges. So that will not impose additional cost constraint on the built environment industry, especially the construction industry. And lastly is the enhanced bank loan scheme. We have a temporary bridging loan scheme where the government comes in to provide a guarantee of up to about 90% of the risk taken so that the private banks can provide loan facility to the companies to ease their cash flow problems. And the third area is basically in terms of compliance costs, right? Compliance costs is basically, I mentioned because a lot of new measures have been put in place. So for example, we have a requirement to have safe management officers on site in terms of helping to organize the site so that it's safe to work. So the government has come in with a $1.36 billion construction support package. We call it CSP, to help the construction industry, especially contractors, to set up these sites and ready for restart. So the government provides 50% wage subsidy for the safe management officers for 6 months. They also provide about co-sharing 50% of any prolongation costs, especially for public projects. So for public projects, because of the delay, there are additional costs incurred. So the government co-shares 50% of those prolongation costs, right? Prolongation costs can be the plant, equipment, site maintenance, insurance, performance bonds, and all these are additional costs to the contractors. So the government has agreed to co-share 50% of that. And also for public projects to provide advance payment, right? So as to help the cash flow of contractors doing government projects. And of course, we hope that the private sector will also follow, right, the initiatives by the government. And of course, the swab test, the testing of the workers, and all these are all subsidized, fully paid by the government. So how does the government help the built environment industry? First, I think the government has set up a one-stop agency to help the built environment industry, right? Especially the contractors, right? Developers, contractors, consultants, suppliers, and also the construction accounts firms, including renovation. So the Building Construction Authority, or BCA, the Building and Construction Authority in Singapore has been appointed as the one-stop agency to help the industry, because there's a lot of information going around, so the industry stakeholders are very confused. So it is important to have a one platform, one-stop agency where all the inquiries, all applications can be actually channeled through. And what the BCA has done is that he has provided this, what we call a one-stop navigator. So this is a one-stop navigator on site where you can look at the different types of projects, and from there it will show you, a checklist, will show you the frequently asked questions, and show you where to get more information, and also a step-by-step approach to get your companies or the work sites to restart work. So this one-stop construction restart navigator has been very helpful. Now we receive a lot of feedback from the industry that this is very clear. All the steps are all there, the hotlines are there, all the information is on the site. So that actually provides a lot of clarity to help many of the, especially construction firms, to get their work site ready. So at the same time also, the government has set up a one-stop online application for the construction of new or temporary foreign workers dormitories. As you know, because before COVID, we have about 1,000 over dormitories where we have over 300,000 workers staying in a dormitory format. But because of COVID, in order to make sure that it's safe for the workers to live in the dormitory, the government has come out with a new requirements, increase it from 4 to 6 meters square per person, right? And that has created a demand for new dormitories or more temporary quarters to be built very quickly to decant some of these workers to the new or temporary accommodation, right? In order to protect the workers from forming cluster or reinfection. So to date, actually, with this online application for dormitories, we managed to build, or in the progress of building, about 460 dormitories, and providing about close to 40,000 beds for the workers. And that has facilitated the decanting of the workers from the purpose-built dormitories to all these additional dormitories, bed space created. So the restart update I just gave you, and how the BCA has been working with the industry stakeholders to help them to restart their work as quickly. So first, they have set up 2 restart ops center, right, at 2 locations, GEM and BCA Academy. That is to provide a one-stop inquiry or application for all the stakeholders. And over the last 5 months, since June, right, maybe about four months, right, over 3,900 applications for restart have been approved. For renovation works, over 61,000 applications have been approved to commence work. The construction accounts, about 29,000 applications have been approved to start work. And through webinar, the BCA has trained 340,000 workers to be safe when they're working at their work sites. And finally, also we have trained COVID safe management officer, 55,000 of them. So this is basically to prepare the industry, to build capabilities in the industry and help the industry to start work as soon as possible. So in August 20, we already have 333,000 workers, all cleared, all screened, right, in all the dormitories, right? This is a massive exercise because it does take the government some time to build capacity. So this one has taken a bit of time to build capacity, right? And of course, the government is not only looking after the built environment, they're also looking at other industries, right? So the Singapore government has aimed to build about 40,000 testing capacity per day. So this is one of the objectives, so that we can provide this testing facility to support the built environment industry. So that has helped in terms of the decanting of the foreign workers into clean dormitories, and it also has helped the companies to get their workers back on their work as soon as possible. So moving forward, what are the new normal in construction? First, I think by now all the industry stakeholders, they know that they have to adopt safe work management system. This is something which is through this 8 months of experience, various stakeholders have come up with different solutions together with the government authorities to actually look into how to work safely in this sort of pandemic environment or in future pandemic environment. So basically, safe work management system has got 3 key strategies. First is containment, right? You must look into how to cohort, how to zone your construction sites, how to demarcate your access, your zonings, your different floors, and how to form work team bubble, right? So the workers work in certain teams according to their trades, so that if there's any infection or reinfection of a certain worker, right, only that group of workers will be quarantined, and you will not adversely affect the workflow. So this is something still work in progress, but I think a lot of work has gone into how to first organize the site, how to organize the transport, how to organize the dormitory for the workers. So this is one of the most important so-called setup for all the construction sites. The second is decongestion, right? We are very worried about cluster, not only in the foreign workers dormitory among the foreign workers, but also the community cluster. Because the workers do go out to the community. So we also worried about community forming clusters of infection. So how do you ensure that the workers are safe, living in their respective dormitories? So you need to work out your safe living measures in the dormitories. You need to provide the safe transport measures to make sure that they don't all group into one group when you're transporting the workers. And at the work site, how to organize safe work arrangements. And lastly, how to provide safe rest days for the workers, because the workers have to rest, right? They need to go out to do their errands, they need to remit money back home, they need to do their shopping, they need to take a rest. But how do you organize 300,000 foreign workers to have rest days? So this is again a very massive exercise, right? If 300,000 of them go out to the community on Sunday, every Sunday, then you find that there are risks of either the community infecting the workers or the workers infecting the community. So the last strategy is on contact tracing and isolation. This is important, of course, with the use of technology, especially digital technology. You find that a lot of workers are having a smartphone, and that makes it easy in terms of developing mobile app for safe entry, contact tracing, swabbing registration, and also isolation SOP. So these 3 strategies in terms of containment, decongestion plus contact tracing and isolation, they are very important in order to make sure that we can make all work progress and ongoing concern, irrespective of whether there will be reinfection at the work sites. The second norm which is happening, including today's webinar, is teleworking or telecommuting, digitalization. You find that with this COVID-19, a lot of businesses, a lot of workers, employers have gone into the digital platform to communicate, to meet, to coordinate, right, to solve problems, including the government agencies. For example, we sit in the industry engagement so-called committee or work group together with the National Development Minister and the Manpower Minister, so as to discuss with the industry stakeholders as to how to solve problems on a daily basis. So we actually have a chat group where we come together, we discuss issues, right, and we resolve issues on the spot. So I think this is very important. With today's digital technology, you can set up WhatsApp group, right? You can go through a webinar, right? Of course, your workers, you have to organize them so that they have they can work at home, right? They can work in the office, or you can split into different teams. So this is important in terms of using digital technology. And on site, of course, we have installed quite a number of temperature taking machines, right? We have web cameras and so on. So there are many opportunities to actually apply digital technology during this period. The third norm is basically business continuity planning. You find that this is one area which many industry stakeholders have over the years not developed capabilities. The business continuity planning of every company has not been fully tested for any pandemic outbreak. So everyone is learning, and everyone is learning how to build resilience for the next wave of outbreak. So I think this is a very good opportunity for all companies to take stock, to look into what are the so-called measures which you must build, or capabilities which you must build. Who are your key personnel? How to organize your key personnel into 2 teams or 3 teams? How to locate them in different offices, right? How to allow your staff to work at home, and some to work on site, some to work in the office. No, so I think there is a lot of reorganization of the whole work environment and the work culture. So it is important to look into building resilience to cope with the next crisis. So especially for your work teams, it's very important to look into your work teams, be it the direct workers or is it the subcontractors and suppliers. So you need to find out what are the alternatives. Your suppliers, maybe you have to also look into the possible disruptions, because they may only take supplies from one source, right, from one country, which may be affected. As a result, your supply may be disrupted. So you may need to diversify your sources of supplies, supply of materials and equipment. So these are all things which I think the industry players will have to sit down, discuss with your team, and see how can you develop a business continuity plan for your company. Of course, you can always use the ISO framework as a guide to develop this BCP for your company. The fourth is that we must always have this assumption that it is always possible for reinfection to occur, whether it's in the dormitory or whether it's at the work site or whether it's the office. There is a need to see how can we restart work, right? Once you have a case, a positive case, how to isolate it properly, how to allow the workers to recover, and how to get the rest of the workers to continue work, right? Or to restart work on site as soon as possible. This is basically to prevent downtime, right? Otherwise, you have start, restart, there will be a lot of disruptions to the whole construction progress. And that has a lot of repercussions on the company. So I think this restart SOP, the Building and Construction Authority has come up with a good practice guide. Of course, this is not so-called the final guide. I think there are still suggestions and solutions from the industry. So I would like to encourage the industry to share your best practice, with the authority, so that we can keep on improving this good practice guide to help the rest of the industry players to get on, to restart as quickly as possible. Of course, with this, the government in Singapore has also set up a series of facilities to support the construction industry, especially. So we have set up the medical support. For example, you can do telemedicine, right? We have set up 7 medical centers island-wide to help the construction industry, and also set up mobile clinical teams for the industry. So these are some of the things which has been in place over the last 8 months to support the built environment industry. So what are the future challenges? First, reinfection. Second wave, third wave, whichever wave. I think these are things which all of us must take responsibility. And how can we prevent a second wave? I think first, personal hygiene is important, right? So in terms of wearing masks, keeping yourself healthy, so this is something which I think all workers, everyone must take note, so that we can reduce the risk of infecting ourselves, right? First, of course, is to look into reducing physical contact interactions during this period, right? I think a lot of interactions, A lot of close contact interactions, without safe distancing will increase the risk of reinfection and causing a second or third wave. So this is something which we must take note. And of course, third is to make sure that the contact tracing is diligent. You must really make sure that you lock in, lock out everywhere you go, so that when there's an infection, we can at least do the contact tracing and straight away quarantine, or isolate that group of people to prevent further infection to the workers' dormitories, or even to the work site, or actually to the community. So this is important. And of course, we look into the recovery facilities provided. Second, you must be prepared that there will be workflow disruptions, right? Not only because of safe distancing measures, but because of reinfection and so on and so forth. Different trades will be disrupted. As a result, you find that your sequence of construction will be disrupted. So you have to be very mindful of that. And what should you do? What are the things you can do? Are there alternatives? Are there options to explore? This, I think we need the industry to come up with solutions, right? And if industries can come up with best practices, please feel free to share. And I think we can benefit the whole industry to make sure that we are able to start and restart work as soon as possible. The third challenge is because of this pandemic, right? Some workers are worried, some have gone home, right? Some are frustrated, because they got locked down, right? And some also, they got poached during this process. And I think this is not healthy, right? When you have a lot of poaching of workers during this pandemic, you're not helping the industry, right? As a result, you increase costs for nothing. At the same time, you also cause disruption to the whole industry. So there'll be a shortage of workers, right, in Singapore, and that definitely will affect the progress of all projects. So this is something which you need to be mindful. And last, all of us don't know. I don't have the answer also, right? How long will COVID-19 last? The Spanish flu lasted 2 years and has adverse impact on the global economy, but we don't know how long. So COVID is already 9 months, 10 months, right? If it lasts for another 1 year, what will be the repercussion? I think this is something the industry stakeholders must think about it. And what are you going to do if it's going to last 1 year? What will be the repercussion, right? Will there be more projects or less projects? And the workers, will there be more workers, less workers? And your supply chain and your business costs in running the business. And you can see there are countries also, they are still imposing travel restrictions, all right? So that has an impact, especially for your key personnel, right? You have specialists in your projects coming from different countries, right? So the green lanes are opening up very slowly, right? And that will be a slow process. And if you have any specialist work, especially when you need foreign talent or specialists to come to your projects, that may hamper the progress of your project. And lastly, the vaccine, right, which is under trial, under test, we're not too sure whether it will be available, right, this year, next year, or the year later. So even with the vaccine, how does it help the construction industry? So these are some things we should need to take note of, right? I put on a slide of all the helplines in Singapore, right? So basically, for Singaporeans, of course, you can refer to all these helplines. For our friends from overseas, you can always also look into it, and maybe we can share some of this information and checklists with our overseas friends in the industry, right? So finally, I think I would like to invite all our industry practitioners. If you have any good ideas, good practice, which you think you would like to share, please forward your ideas to this admin@sibl.org.sg. The Singapore Institute of Building is more than happy to actually welcome any suggestion that can help the industry to move forward in this pandemic, and also to build our capabilities to cope with any adversities in the future. Okay, so with that, thank you very much, and I'm quite happy to answer any questions from the participants. Thank you.
So, thank you, Dr. Teo, for sharing a very insightful presentation with us. So without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, let us now get into the Q&A session. So we have questions from the floor. Dr. Teo, which will be the most impact factor on business in your impact list due to COVID?
I think the most serious impact will be on the progress of work on site and also the workers. I think the pandemic affects workers, human beings. So if the workers are infected, that will be so-called the end of any progress on site. So you find that the first thing you need to protect is actually the workers on site and the workers in dormitories and workers at your office. So you must make sure that every single worker in the built environment industry is safe. Then with the workers, then you are able to organize the sites, following the various guidelines by the authorities and adopting safe work practices, in order to make progress in the projects. Right. So I would say I'll put the priority on making sure that our workers are safe from infection and making work arrangements to make sure that they can live safely, they can work safely, and they also can rest safely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Teo. So we have one more question. Could BCA to work together with MOM to expedite the site worker quarter approval processing? Now it took more than 1 month still under processing.
Yes, as I mentioned before, the BCA has set up an online application for all the dormitory construction. I think it is important to send in your application following the guidelines. You go to the website, you can see, just go to BCA online dormitory application. They have a guidelines down there. Follow the guidelines and make your application. Then let us know if you really find you have encountered any problems. We will be more than happy to channel it to the BCA to look into it, because there are many considerations when you're building dormitories. One of the key considerations is to look into the land use, the surroundings, plus also the sewer system, the capacity, right? You cannot build a 5,000 dormitory down there when you don't have the sewer infrastructure to support the dormitory. So I think there are a lot of considerations in terms of the existing infrastructure, because I can understand that the contractors or the suppliers or subcontractors, they would like to build the dormitories as quickly as possible. Yes, we need to provide this accommodation as quickly as possible, but we also need to look at it from the holistic point of view, whether that infrastructure on that piece of land can support this new dormitory or temporary living quarters for the workers. It is not only for the welfare of the worker, but also to make sure that the welfare of the surrounding people who are near these dormitories is not affected also. So I think there is a balance which the authorities must consider when they are considering the application. So I will urge the industry stakeholders to be a little bit more patient, right? I think BCA has mobilized 400 of their staff to actually support the industry, to put all their efforts to help the industry to restart all their projects. But there are quite a number of other considerations which they need to take into, to take note, right? So as to make sure that the impact on the other stakeholders surrounding the dormitories will not be affected also. Yes. Any other questions?
Okay. Yes, looks like we have more questions for you, Dr. Teo. So the next question says, how do we ensure the mental health of our workers, given that they are very restricted and confined to their quarters?
Yes, I think this is very important. The mental health of the worker is definitely very important, because I think all of us know we have experienced circuit breaker for about 2 months. All Singaporeans, all workers also understand the feeling of being locked down, right? But this is something which all of us must go through, right? I think for the workers, the most important thing is to keep them healthy, right? So how can we keep them healthy, and how can we get them to work as quickly as possible, right? By getting them to work as quickly as possible, that will help to release a lot of their mental stress, right? The workers are here to work, so they really would like to work, right? If given the opportunities to work, they will rather spend time to work so that they can earn the money to bring back home or to remit home. So I think we have to first keep them healthy. then get them to be work ready and get on work as quickly as possible. Then we have to think of ways to see how can we provide rest days for them to rest safely. So I think these are the three things which we need to do in order to look into the mental health and the welfare of the workers. Yes, Davis.
All right, thank you, Dr. Teo. We have a bit more time, so we will continue with the next questions. Will the government roll out more public sector works next year to cushion off the impact of drastic drop in construction demand from private sector?
Well, I cannot so-called answer on behalf of the government. I think the government is looking at the industry to see how. I think it's no point creating extra demand when you cannot get all the workforce and all the work sites and all the built environment industry players to be work ready. So I think you need to look at the situation. How does it evolve in the industry? First, I think the pandemic, how long is it going to last? Will there be a second, third, or fourth wave? Right? And I think based on that development of the pandemic, then you look into what is going to be the upcoming projects. So I think the priority will, of course, be given to projects which can generate jobs for Singaporeans in Singapore. We look into projects which can build and strengthen the healthcare facilities and support to make sure that we have all these facilities to support any Singaporeans or residents staying in Singapore if they get infected or they have other so-called illnesses. So I think healthcare facilities, investments which can bring jobs to Singapore are projects of priority, be it public or private projects. No, but you have to look at the capacity of the industry to see whether the industry is able to cope with this workload. Of course, the housing, like for example, public housing, they have just recently made an announcement that next year it's going to be about 8,000 built-to-order flats, right? Although it's been scaled down a little, but I think there's still enough work in terms of public housing projects. And I would not know whether there'll be an increase or decrease, but some projects, of course, have already gone into a review, right? For example, the new Terminal 5 airport has already been delayed for 2 years to look into, to review the project to see how to move forward, right? So I think we just have to be so-called mindful of the pandemic developments and also to look into the future projects which can benefit Singapore, right? And also to build capabilities in our built environment to support any outbreak in the community.
Right, okay, we still have, I think we can take one more question. Right, so my next questions that we have is the construction sector is poised to take 10 billion hit this year as public sector project gets pushed back and demand drops sharply for project in the private sector. What lasting impact do you think COVID-19 will have on the sector?
Okay, since February when the COVID-19 started to impact the construction industry, especially construction projects, I think two things. One is that the existing construction projects are already affected, right? Because circuit breaker, work has stopped for about 2 months. Then it took another few months, 1 or 2 more months to restart work on site, right, to get the workers ready, to get the work site ready. So there is already a delay in all the 4,000 over projects in Singapore. So once you have a progress delay in all these projects, everything is pushed down, right? And there'll be a lot of repercussions, right, in terms of contractual obligations, in terms of financing, right, in terms of cost of operations and progress payment and so on. So I think that has the first impact, which is the existing projects are already been affected by COVID-19. Then second, of course, with the outbreak of the COVID-19 at the workers' dormitories, the whole dormitory so-called infrastructure has to be reorganized. Now with these new safe living measures, you find that overnight, all the 1,000 over dormitories in Singapore have to be reconfigured to meet the new requirements. And that requires a lot of work of all the dormitory operators and all those contractors who are actually operating the dormitories. So that is another repercussion of COVID-19 on the construction industry. And of course, third is the disruption in terms of the company's operations, right? Some companies that do not have a lot of reserves, especially cash reserves, may face possibility of liquidation, right? And actually may result in job losses. So definitely there'll be some consolidation in the industry, and some companies will be very adversely affected by COVID-19.
Okay. Looks like we only have one more question to go due to the time. So, Dr. Teo, is the new normal going to mean less workers on site in future?
Well, the new normal has actually pushed for more adoption of technology, especially digital construction. Right, I think digital construction delivery will be the norm, right, in the future, because I think you can't escape digitalization in the construction industry. So I think this is one area which we hope that all the industry stakeholders will actually put in their efforts to build capabilities in digital technology. Especially in Singapore, we have been promoting the building information modeling, BIM, for many, many years. And I think it's about time to get on BIM so that building information modeling, digitalization of the whole construction process, right, ranging from the design to the construction, to the project management plus the facilities management, in the whole life cycle of a building or facility, right? Digital technology can play a very important part to increase the productivity, to reduce abortive work, and also to provide better coordination to achieve the quality outcomes we want for the industry. So I would think that the push for digitalization will be more intense, and we do hope the industries will adopt digitalization to move forward, right? I think automation, mechanization has already been done in the past, right? Digitalization is just started, right? And maybe in the future, there'll be more in terms of the AI, the artificial intelligence application in the construction industry, right? The use of drones, collection of data, data analytics, to actually come up with new ways of organizing and building construction projects on site. So I think this is the future, right? Just one correction. Just now when I was inviting for the suggestions to the SIBL admin, can you email instead of going to that website? Just send it to admin@sibl.com.sg. If you have any suggestions which you want us to bring it up to the authorities, we are more than happy to help to provide the feedback to the authorities, right? So the Singapore Institute of Building is also a member of the Construction Industry Joint Committee, right? So they are in constant engagement with the authorities. So I think we need to work together in order to help the industry to move fast, right? I know everybody wants to get everything done by yesterday. No, but we must look at the scale of the complexity and the scale of this whole pandemic and the impact on the industry. And we really need to find the best solutions to actually move forward, as an industry. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Teo, for taking all the questions. So as we are nearly come to the end, so we will reach out to you separately for any questions that we have not been able to answer during this time. We hope you have enjoyed the session brought to you by BuildTech Asia. The next webinar session is starting very soon at 11 a.m. Please hear from Ms. Dana from Singapore Institute of Building Limited as she shares about key clauses to look out for in PSS-COC contract administration in a post-COVID-19 world. At the same time, you may spend some time visiting the exhibition hall where 100 virtual booths is on exhibits. So thank you once again for joining us. Stay safe and stay connected with us. Bye-bye.